Hey guys, and welcome to FaithWorks Designs. I'm Faith, and today we're going to be working on some Christmas in July. I needed a new Christmas tree skirt really bad. We've done one in the past, but I wanted to do another one this year. And when Kennedy came to me and they were like, we've got this new Christmas fabric we're going to be doing in July to advertise. What do you think you can make with it? So we went out and I saw the Coca-Cola fabric and I was like, I just have to make a Christmas tree skirt. So hopefully you can see it. It's the Coca-Cola bears and they're so cute. So as soon as I saw it, I knew I needed to make a tree skirt. And there was 3 different blocks that I wanted to do. One was the Christmas present. The second one was a Coca-Cola can, which I am playing with the idea of putting up like a Coca-Cola label on here, but I don't want to get in trouble with like copyrights and stuff, so haven't done it yet. But you could if it was just for you and you're not going to sell it. And then the last block is going to be your little teddy bear. In today's tutorial, we are going to be going over all 3 blocks one at a time. I'll give you all of the measurements. One of them, the Coca-Cola can, is going to be a link to someone else's free pattern. The present is my pattern, and then the polar bear is also my pattern. I'll be leaving them in links down below so you guys can get them. As I put them together, I give you all of the measurements, show you how to put everything together, and then at the end it turns into more of a vlog because I ran out of time. So I do give you them all the measurements, but I would highly recommend watching the whole video first before you start cutting everything out, and make sure that you can follow along. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so we've got all of our pieces. We've got our strips that go in the middle, and they are 8 by 2. So we're going to need a bunch of those, and then we're going to need a strip that's 4.5 by 8. So we're going to have our little side panels. I'm hoping that light is okay because it looks kind of stinky right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab one of your panels and then one of your strips, and we're going to sew these back to back just to make this go a whole lot faster, like this. You're basically making our little box shape with your strip in the middle so that it'll be your little wrapping right there. So let's get that done. I always use my industrial, my fabricator. If you guys have ever watched that video, I love my machine, and I always think it's loud until I use this one. I'm trying to watch an audiobook or listen to an audiobook right now, and I can't hear a word of it. So my industrial is not as loud as I thought it was. Alright, so you've got your left side connected to the middle. Now you're going to take another piece and flip it on top of that, and you're just making your little sandwich. Now I would normally go and press this, but I'm kind of in a hurry, so I'm going to press it after I get both sides done, but it should look like this when you get it all finished, your block. So I figured out why it was so dark. I didn't have the light on. Alright, so we've got our block, our bottom part of our block done. I've got all of my seams pressed open. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to grab your ribbon fabric, whatever you're using for the center of this. I'm going to grab this blue, and then my background fabric is going to be white. And so I've measured out 5 by 5 inch squares, and then I'm going to put right sides together, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew all the way around 1/4 inch. Now that I've got my square all done, next thing I'm going to do is grab my rotary cutter. My rotary cutter and my ruler, and I'm going to slice straight down the middle. You're going to want to put it like a diamond, and you're going to take your rotary cutter and you're going to cut this way, and then you're going to cut across, and that gives you 4 of your top ribbon. Now you're going to want to take these to the iron and you can press your seams open or you can press them towards the dark side of your fabric so that you have the top of your blocks. So you can see that your ribbon is starting to take shape. So that's the top of your little ribbon for your little block. So let's go iron that. And then you're also going to want to cut out some 3x3 squares, and those are going to go on each side of these. So after you've ironed all of your squares and get them all straight, you're going to line up 2 of them just like this, and then you're going to flip them on right sides facing each other, and then sew down the middle on the white side 1/4 inch. After you get that done, it should look like this. Make sure that you press all of your seams, and then grab your 3x3 inch blocks, and you're going to put a 3x3 inch block on each side of your main piece. This is going to make the top of your block. You're going to take this top piece and then put it with your bottom piece just like this. And then your block is done. I haven't pressed this one yet, but when you press it, you will have your present all done. Now we went through that really quickly because I'm afraid the other blocks are going to take us a really long time. So I'm going to finish up my blocks, get that all done, and then we will move to the next block. Alright, so we're on to the soda can printout. I've got this link down below. Hopefully it'll stay online so you guys can find it. They have 2 options. They have one where you can just have the can, and they have another one where you can kind of have like the pop tab that pops up. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the regular can because I got a lot of this to do. So we're going to skip that. Now I printed this out at 80%. Because they need to be small because of the way that our tree skirt is kind of going up into an angle. And it's going to be wide down at the bottom and then kind of go smaller to the top. This one's going to be at the top. And then I went ahead and measured everything and then added seam allowance to the width and the height. So I've got 3.5 by 5.5. It's going to be 5.5 tall. And I went ahead and I cut out a bunch of those. And then I cut out a bunch of 3/4 by 3/4 3-inch, oh my goodness. I cut out a bunch of 3/4 by 3/4 squares that I had to steal some fabric and cheat over there. I didn't have any gray fabric, so we're making do with what we got. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take each rectangle and lay right side to right side like that in all 4 corners. And then what you're going to do is from this corner to this corner sew across. So when I already ironed these, but you could probably see that I've sewn from this corner to that corner, and then I cut off my excess, and then I pressed these open, and you start to get the shape of your soda can. So that's as far as I am right now. I'm going to be adding the bottom part and then just the top part of the rim, and then add some white onto each side. Alright, so we've got all of our Coca-Cola bottles, cans done. You can probably see a mistake that I've done. I accidentally put the corners on the bottom of the can. You're supposed to put it on the very bottom down here. I'm not going to call it a mistake. I'm going to call it a design choice. So I'm going to leave it because I am not going to pick all these out and cut them all out, and it'll just be a waste. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab a piece that is 3.5 by 3/4, and we're going to put one at the top and then one at the bottom so that we have our can is finished. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the white around the edges, but I just wanted to show you this. Go ahead, sew the top and the bottoms onto your Coke can, and then we'll get the measurements for the rest of the block. Alright, so I've got all of my blocks for the Coke cans done with our design choices at the bottom. When I attached them, I just used 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. just so that we didn't take up. It's supposed to be really thin because it's a can lid at the top, and then you've got to have this sewn on the top too. So it's going to be really thin on the top like that. So the next thing that you're going to need to do is grab a square that's 3.5 by 3.5. My background is going to be white, so that's what I'm using. I'm going to put one at the top and then one at the bottom, and again I'm going to be using the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance so that the top and the bottom of the can are really thin. Alright, so we're almost done with the can quilt block. The next thing that I'm going to do is I cut out some 2.5 wide by 12 inches long strips, and I'm going to put one on each side of the can so that we can make a block. Now it's going to look really big. Like I said, we're going to cut it down when we get to that point, but I wanted to start out larger than it being too small and then having to add to it in the end anyway. My theory is always make it better. You can always make it smaller, but if you make it too small, sometimes you can't make it bigger. So always go big or go home. Okay, so we saved the most difficult piece to do at the very end. I figured it was going to be like that. I'd rather get the easy stuff over with and then do the hard stuff later. So this is a template of a pattern I created for the little polar bear face. Now it's either going to be available on my Facebook page or it's going to be available on Etsy. I got to figure out if there's a way that I can do a file or something. I will figure it out. But you've got your little bear. Our very first point, let me see this. If you've never done paper piecing before, take a second, go watch a few videos, and just kind of feel out how they do it. I'm going to explain as best I can to you, but there are certain parts in this that I am not going to be able to explain well because I'm still kind of learning to do it, and it's my pattern. So it's not like somebody else created one and I can just follow along. I've got to kind of figure it out. The problem lies right here. If you've ever done paper piecing, you know that you can sew this part down, but then you've got this right here, and there's different lines. Let me show you. This is what a almost finished one looks like. So you've got your bear whole, but you don't have his ears. We're going to do that separately and then paper piece them on, and I'll show you that in the video, but I just wanted you to see kind of where we're going to be for this stuff. Alright, the very first thing is you're going to want to get a piece of black fabric. What I did was I traced it 1/4 of an inch larger than the actual nose. And then you're going to have to kind of hold it up to the light so that you can see that there we go. So that you can see that you've got that little nose centered and the 1/4 of an inch is going all the way around. As best you can. It's hard to see. If you have a light box, this will be a lot easier, but I just kind of had to sit there and try and do it myself. Alright, the very first piece that we're going to grab is this one. And I would highly suggest, as far as like saving material, cut some white fabric out that's 2.5 inches wide and however long. And then for the blue or your background fabric, cut it out 3 inches wide and however long. I noticed that I was just losing a lot of fabric and using a lot of the scraps, and it was really annoying. So after you've got this all in place, flip it over to the back, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your white fabric, and you can kind of see your point right here. That's the very first one that we're going to do. So we're going to line up our white fabric with our black fabric. Okay, so what I'm doing is I've got my black fabric here, I'm putting my white fabric here, kind of centered so that I can cut around it. Now I'm going to put my fingers here and hold it really good. I'm going to take my pin out and I'm going to pin it back here away from where we're going to sew. We're going to be stitching at 1/4 of an inch right here, so just straight across. Now, I found when the white gets on white, the lines for where we need to sew get a little blurry. So what I did was I turned it upside down, and I know that this is the piece that I'm sewing on right now. So I need to sew from this line to this line. That's all I'm sewing right now. And I like to sew on this side. That's why I say make sure that your pin is out of the way. Alright, so we're just going to sew straight across that line where the little cone is. This will make sense, I promise. Just stick with me. Okay. I would highly suggest cutting all your strings now and not waiting till later, because this is going to be a lot of strings. The next thing is you're going to do is you're going to take that pin out and lay it nice and flat. Now you can press this or you can finger press it just like this, and then hold it like this. Okay, so here's the thing. This is what we're going to be doing. You're going to be folding this paper a lot, and in paper piecing, that's kind of how you do it, is you just make a bunch of folds. The very first thing we want to do is the fabric underneath of here needs to have 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on both sides of these lines for that piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to, at this line, we're going to fold our piece of paper on that line. Again, if you have a light box, this would be super duper helpful. But you see, I'm folding it on that line. Then I'm going to grab my little ruler so I don't have to mess with my big ruler. And I'm going to mark 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And that way, I know what I got to cut off. You don't want to have all this fabric hanging. So now we know there's 1/4 of an inch. We got to go on each of these pieces. You're going to have to do this. We're going to have to find this line to this line and fold it. And then you see where our line is there? Nope. We're going to do another 1/4 of an inch on this side. And that is the fabric that we need to cut off. So I'm going to start by getting my straight edge for my next one. And then we're just going to cut this off. I think I should probably just do a paper piecing video for you guys so we can practice that first. But I was working on this for my rep job, and I wanted you guys to see it because the Coca-Cola bears are going to be so huge. We're just cutting where we marked. And now you can see that we've got our little bear and his little face is coming together. Now, the next piece that we're going to do is going to be right along this side. So what I'm going to do is grab my piece, and about 1/4 of an inch up from his little nose, I'm going to put my fabric and lay it down, and then I'm going to pin it. You can put more pins in this if you feel like that's what you need. Now, we're going to do 1/4 of an inch all the way down. Again, I'm flipping mine over so I can see where I'm supposed to be sewing. Alright, so we're going to start at the bottom, back stitch, and then we're going to cut all of our strings. We are going to take this piece, and you can, again, you can press it or you can finger press it. And leave it like that. Now, every now and then you might notice that some of that black is poking out, so you might want to cut that down a little bit. Because I decided to use white and black fabric because, you know. Alright, finger press it, and then you're going to turn it over. Now, like we did with this piece where we folded it on both those sides, we're going to do that again. So we're going to find, see, his nose is here, and this is the piece that we just did. So we're going to fold this over. Then we're going to get our ruler. And we're going to measure 1/4 of an inch. Okay. I actually started cutting before I moved to the next piece. And then we're folding right down here at the bottom line. It took me a while to figure out how to do this, guys, so I know you might have to watch this more than once to figure this out. I think I'm on my 10th block now, so I've got it pretty nailed down now. But the first, I've recorded this like 5 times now, trying to show you guys how to do this. we got to cut off all this excess fabric so it's not underneath of our other fabric, and it'll stick out like a sore thumb. All right, so we got his little face. Look, it's so cute. All right, next thing, we need to do each side of his little muzzle. So you can start either side, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to grab our fabric and then at 1/4 of an inch from the top so that when you fold it over, it'll be like it's supposed to. Now, poke yourself. You can put as many pins as you need in here, no big deal. But you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch all the way down to that fabric. Make sure that your fabric is nice and flat underneath. So I'm going to stop, make sure everything's straight. You're sewing all the way down to that line. Alright, now that you got that done, you're going to lay that flat and press it with your fingers. Alright. Now, we did this side, that's where the fabric is. So you can start at the bottom. You're going to have just a tiny bit on this side to do. Lift this up. You want to make sure that it stays nice and flat and nothing shifts around. And measuring 1/4 of an inch all the way around. I told you there's a lot of paper folding, a lot of folding. Just make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be. And you might have to trim off some of the black if you didn't quite do 1/4 of an inch all the way around. I've been noticing that black was just really hard to mark. Alright, so we're going to cut all of our excess off. And then I think it's helped me after doing it so many times to just fold the paper back and just cut instead of trying to lift it up or do anything else to it. Okay, and then I'm just going to straighten out my fabric. Alright, I got one side of his little face and he's already starting to turn cute. Okay, next side, make sure you put it a little bit higher than his nose. We're going to do the other side, same thing, so 1/4 of an inch all the way down that side. Alright, so we're just going to sew from the very bottom all the way up to like the midline where his little face is. Or the top of his face, I should say. Now, if you'll notice, I'm backstitching. Make sure that you backstitch because you don't want this coming in sewed, especially paper piecing. It's not easy to fix, so make sure that you backstitch. Alright, take that pin out, finger press it. Okay, and start at the bottom again. And eventually your paper will just kind of fold with you and do what it's supposed to do. Okay. Now what I've been doing, and you can do this too, is I go ahead and cut my tail off to get it out of my way so I don't have to keep dealing with it while I'm trying to do everything else. Alright, so we're doing this side of his face. And you just have to kind of look through your paper to find those lines and know where to bend your paper at. And I have been stopping and just going ahead and cutting my fabric with each mark because it just makes it go a lot faster. But you do you, whatever feels more comfortable to you. It does go pretty fast. His face, it is the sides of his, like the background and his ears that seem to be taking me forever because I have to trace everything out. Alright, look at his little face, he's so cute. Alright, now what I did was 6 by 4. Again, I don't want to waste any more fabric than I have to, just kind of guesstimating what sizes I'm going to need. So I got a piece that's 4 by 6, and what you're going to do is you're going to line it up across his little muzzle and across his little cheeks. And there should be about 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides, give or take. And then I'm going to pin down here because I'm going to be sewing across here. We don't want to get our pin. So just sew 1/4 inch across there. On the back of your line, it should be from this point to this point over here. Now, you have got your bear. We just gotta finger press this and then cut around and we will have his little face. He's so cute. Alright, so lay him down, and at each of these lines you're gonna have to fold your paper so that you can cut back 1/4 inch. Like so. You're just, for every piece that you're doing, you're just doing 1/4 inch. You've got to fold it back and then measure 1/4 inch. So I would highly recommend like a smaller ruler for this so that you're not having to mess with a gigantic ruler. Alright, one more. Okay, that's just a teeny tiny bit that needs to come off. Now on his little face, when I'm done, I'm gonna put little buttons on for his little eyes. You could put a mouth if you wanted to. If you got an embroidery machine, you could fix them up with a cute little smile. It's really entirely up to you what you want to do. I am just going to do buttons because I want it to be kind of simple. I don't want it to take away from the rest of the design of the quilt. Alright, for the tree skirt, excuse me. Okay, we got our bear. Woohoo! Alright, now I've got my 3-inch strip of fabric. I'm going to have to cut some more out, but that's okay. Where we're going to start with this is we're going to want to do these sides right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that what we're doing right now is this side piece right here, this little side triangle. So I have lined it up as best I can all the way down, and you're going to pin it, and then I would say sew 1/4 inch all the way down, but it'd be really hard to tell where to start. That's why I always turn it over and then just sew down that line. It just, mentally, it made more sense for me to do it like this. So that's what we are going to do. Make sure that your fabric is nice and flat on the bottom. And we're just doing the side of his cheek for the first background part. Alright. So now I'm going to take my pen out, and I'm going to finger press him. See, it doesn't go right here. You'll see there's a hole right there. That's alright. The next piece is going to cover all of that. Alright, and then fold it on the back. And then again, we're going to go and fold the paper. And it should be pretty well folded and easy to fold now, because you folded it so many times. Okay, and then we're going to fold the paper at the bottom. I think I'm going to need some more of my refill pen. Hey, so help a girl out. What are you guys listening to? What are you guys watching? I just finished an audiobook of The Wheel of Time, something I've been wanting to read for a while now. But man, it is just a book. A thick book. And I decided to listen to it. There's your background piece. I decided to listen to it instead of read it. And I'm glad that I did, because if I had just read it, I don't think I would have gotten that far with it. Rosalind Pike, I want to say Pike, I don't think that's right. The lady who plays in the Wheel of Time. Rosamund? Oh my gosh, that's just terrible. I don't know her name. Anyway, she did the reading for it, and it was so good. It was so good. And I want to read the second book now, but you ever finish anything and you just feel like you're in a show hole? Only I read a book, not a show. I feel like I'm in a show hole now that I finished reading that book. So I need another suggestion, or thinking, I don't know. I'm almost tempted to read the second book. I don't know. You guys got any favorites you can share with me? Let me know in the comment section, because I'd really like to know. Alright, we're going to do the other side. So we're just doing opposites. We're going back and forth. 1/4 of an inch up here. Line it up and then pin it, just like you did the other side. I need something to watch or something to listen to. I like watching documentaries. I like history. Hopefully you saw where I sewed. It was just from the bottom to this line right here to the side of his little head. I like stuff like that. So if you guys have any suggestions, leave them in the comment section, because I am sort of in a show hole. What I was going to say was, I thought about reading the second book, but now after listening to her read it, and I listened to the portion on Amazon that you could see what it would be like to go ahead and do the Audible, and I listened to the guy that was reading it. It sounded kind of like it was computerized. I was like, it's just not the same. It's not the same without her reading it. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to read that one, read/listen to it, or not. I don't know. I'll make up my mind at some point. But I'm in a show hole, so if any of you guys have anything that you think I would like, share it down in the comment section. If not, I will continue to be in a show hole. I'm trying to think if there was anything interesting that I've watched recently. Not really. There's just not a whole lot of shows with like an original thought. Seems like we have to beat a dead horse and make a show after a show and then redo the show because we didn't like the first one. So we got to do it again. Alright, the sides are done. He's coming into shape. Alright, now we're going to do the left side of his head. So you're just going to put it right there across his head, edge to edge, the white with the blue. Okay, now we're going to sew not from the top, but the line right here where they kind of intersect. Hopefully you can see that. And put my needle down and make sure that my fabric is nice and straight. I will also say it was kind of hard to listen to something while I was working on this machine. My TV is like right over there, and I couldn't hear on this machine, which is kind of funny because I use my industrial all the time, and everybody's like, that's all loud. I'm like, no, it's not. Not comparatively to this machine. I love her to death. I'm not complaining, but she's loud and I can't hear. Does anybody have Audible and like to listen to it while they sew? I find that if I'm busy and I'm like getting up and doing stuff and cutting fabric, I don't want my phone or something hanging on to me. That's why I kind of prefer the TV, so that I don't have something on me while I'm trying to work. But I'm tempted to get Audible so that at least I can read more books while I'm working. Okay, my camera cut off, so I'm not really sure where I was at. But it's fine. Alright, last piece on the main part. So we're going to line up the very top. And you're going to want to make sure that this fabric passes over the top so that we catch this underneath of that. So it's just going to kind of overlap those two pieces. And then make sure that you sew 1/4 of an inch. Alright, I'm going to cut this all out because I'm running out of space on my card. I'm going to cut all this out and then show you guys how I do the side. Okay, it is the end of the day and I got totally in the zone and forgot to show you guys the very last piece. I'm sorry, but I'm going to explain what I did. So, I have a bunch of these little pieces out on my desk. I took this half and I cut out all 4 pieces and made them individual pieces. And then I took them and put them on my fabric and then put a 1/4 inch all the way around each piece. And then I put the ear and this blue fabric together, right sides together, sewn them, press that. Then the very bottom one, right side together, press that back. And then the same thing with the top, right side together, sew it at a 1/4 inch, pull it back. Then I took and laid the whole situation down on top of his face, sewed a 1/4 inch all the way up, and then pressed it back, and his little ears are all done. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am so tired. There was 12 of them. Oh gosh. Okay, so that's done. The next step is going to start putting everything together. And like, yes, I'm making more taco wallets. Alright guys, so we are on kind of a time crunch. I thought I had more time. You know how that goes. So what I've done is I've taken some of the black fabric that I've got from my stash because I don't want to have to stop and go to the store. And it is 44 by I think 4 yards. So what I did was I folded it in half so that the 44 is together. And then I took the tail end and I folded it back on itself. If you've watched any of my apron videos, you'll see this is how I kind of like to do the circle skirt method. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, you should have 4 layers right here. The corner of your 4 layers, when they meet together at a fold, I'll get you closer in just a second, is going to be on this side. You're going to have all of your length this way. Right now, it's measuring about 30, so it'd be 60 inches wide, and I've got it folded in half so that we have 30. Alright, so I've got my fabric folded out. It is 44 inches wide by 60 inches long. I wanted it to be bigger, but we are where we are. So I've got it folded in half so that it's 22 inches wide, and then the 60 inches is folded in half so that it's 30 long. You're going to have a point right here where you're going to have 4 layers of fabric, and you're going to have a nice little corner. You want this corner towards you. The next thing that you're going to need to do is get you a handy dandy measuring tape. And then, if you haven't seen my circle skirt video, I suggest watching that. If you see this, I was at the hospital with my son this morning. He's fine. We just had to have something done. Okay. Everybody's okay, right? Okay. We don't need a huge hole for our tree to go around the Christmas tree. So I'm going to start with 2 inches and see if I like that. So you're going to put your measuring tape 2 inches from the corner out. And then you're going to do that in a half circle, or you're going to have like 1/4 of a circle. And then connect those dots. Alright, so you can see right here I've done my little 2 inches. I just kind of put it right here, and right here so that I can measure 2 inches out. I really don't need that big of a hole for the top. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from this mark right here to the end of my fabric, to the width of my fabric, and see how long that is. I think 19 is a good inch. Alright, we're going to do 19 inches, and we're going to do just like we did for that first mark. We're going to keep making marks, and I'm going to back you up in just a second so you can actually see what I'm doing. So at 19 inches, I'm putting it at the first mark and then marking out. Man, I wish I could go a little bit bigger, but that's okay. It's okay. We'll do 19 inches. And you're just going to keep it at that mark Again, if you've watched my circle skirt video, this will make a lot more sense. But you're going to have 2 marks when you get done. This is going to be a lot smaller than I anticipated, but that is, at this point, I am running late. So we got to do what we got to do. Alright. So we've got all of our marks. Give me a second, I'll get you close. Alright, as you can hopefully see, I've got my outer line going this way, and then I've got my inner line. We're going to cut those 2 lines out. Okay, we had to fast forward a little bit because I'm running out of time, but in the video I'm showing you how to pull the blocks together. Really quickly, I'm going to show you what I did to finish everything together. This is not what I originally intended, but it's what we got. So I removed the white on the sides that I had put on the boxes and then just attached the cans to the packages. I took a piece that is 4.5 by 8.5 and put it on the top towards the can. As you can see, nothing is level down here at the bottom, and that's because we're going to be cutting out the little swoop down at the bottom, so I didn't even bother with that. The next thing that I did is I took some material and I measured the height of my bear and then the width of how wide I was going to need it to be once I laid it on top of my pattern piece right here. Then I took this piece and right sides together, sewed it down, ironed it. Now what I'm going to do, that I've got both layers done, I'm going to lay this on top and get it centered, and then I'm going to cut out my shape. That will give me one of the 4 panels that I'm going to have to sew together to make my tree skirt. So I'm going to do that to each of the 4 panels, and then I'm going to sew the panels together. Alright, so that's what it looks like for your 1 panel cut out. Now go do that 3 more times. Okay, after I cut out each little triangle situation, I put them right sides to right sides, sewed a 1/4 inch, opened them back up, and then just did it all the way around. I did leave a hole because we're going to have that hole to get the tree in and out of. I'm not upset about it. It's not what I had envisioned, but I kind of like it. So we're going to keep moving on. The next thing I'm going to have to do is iron this out real quick because I forgot to do that. And then I'm going to take my tree skirt bottom and I'm going to put that right side to right side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's got the slit like it does here. And then you just sew around the edges and leave a place on a side somewhere where you can turn it inside out. And that is how you can get away with not doing any kind of binding, because that's a pain in the butt. So just turning it inside out. I will hopefully show you that when I get there. Okay guys, it is all done. I ended up using 2 layers of batting just to make it a little thicker. You can see right here I didn't leave myself a big enough hole. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to extend this out just a little bit, but that is my hole to turn all of this inside out. What you're going to do also is on the corners, you're going to want to cut those corners off so that when you turn it inside out, they'll lay nice and flat. So you're going to want to open this up, and then you just turn everything inside out and then top stitch and close up your hole, and you're absolutely done. Whew! It's all done! Okay, so I decided to not quilt this. I thought it had a lot going on and it's just a tree skirt, and the fact is I'm running out of time. So all I did was I top stitched. I also wanted to say, if you're going to leave a hole open for turning, I would leave it on this straight part and not on the round part, because it would be really hard to get that sewn up. Also, your back fabric. Some of this is going to be on a bias because you're cutting a circle and it's not just kind of a straight line. So make sure that when you put right sides to right sides together that you pin like crazy, because you're gonna need it. I noticed that mine was kind of like if your fabric stretches at all on the bias, mine was kind of stretching, so I had to kind of hold it taut so that I wouldn't have ripples or bubbles or anything like that. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're sewing. Pin like crazy, that way it won't move. But I really like this. I think it turned out great. I wish I had had red for the back, but it's fine. It's fine. It's done. I will be on time for my rep thing. Yay! Now I need to sleep for like a week. Alright guys, so what did you think? I know it was kind of a chaos there at the end, but I thought that I had like a lot more time, and then it ended up being only 2 days. So I was like, I have to bust this out. So originally in my mind I wanted the can, the teddy bear, and then the present down at the bottom all kind of in a row. But when time happened, we just had to go for what we had. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Hopefully you were able to follow along with the instructions, and hopefully you'll have a cute little tree skirt too. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up, or if you want to subscribe and hang around and see all of the other crazy stuff we're working on, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Or if you have any questions, comments, if there's something that you weren't really sure about in some of the pattern, just leave those comments down in the comment section. I check those daily. Also, if you guys make some of the stuff that you see in my videos, I would love to see them. So if you're on Instagram, go at Faithworks Designs. I would love to see your creations. So thanks for joining us at Faithworks Designs. Bye guys.